The earliest known evidence of human ear surgery has just been discovered in Spain. Researchers from the University of Valladolid unearthed a skull that was more than 5,300 years old and showed unmistakable signs of an ancient medical operation. The skull was found at Dolmen el Pendon, a site that once served as a collective cemetery, beginning around 3800 BCE and remained in use for over 800 years. When the researchers conducted their analysis, they found that the woman about 35 years old had undergone a mastoidectomy, a surgical procedure in which the bone behind the ear is opened to treat infection. What shocked the scientists was that the woman had been operated on both ears. During the Stone Age, there were no anesthetics, no sterilization techniques, making such a procedure unimaginably painful. The tools used may have included razor-sharp flint blades, used to bore into the bone and scrape away the infected tissue. To this day, it remains a mystery how ancient humans could have performed such a complex technique. Was it primitive medicine or a form of torture? That question is still unanswered. The year 2021 was truly full of surprises for Earth science. Researchers have just announced the discovery of a previously unknown layer within the planet's core. Scientists have identified an entirely new layer of the Earth, what they're calling the innermost inner core. This discovery is being hailed as a historic breakthrough, originating from the Australian National University and published in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Solid Earth. According to the study, a fifth layer exists, buried even deeper than the inner core we previously knew. Scientists believe that a slight change in the structure of iron deep within the planet reveals two distinct cooling events in Earth's formation history. Joanne Stevenson, the lead author of the study, still cannot explain the cause or nature of these dual inner cores. All the research team could determine was that the true core is composed of two separate layers. Much more research will need to be conducted before we can fully understand the evolutionary history of the Earth, before every textbook in the world must be rewritten. Still, it's a fascinating piece of information for anyone to share with friends about this additional core layer. If roundworms, complex creatures found living deep inside the crust once amazed scientists, then a recent 6-week expedition to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean by an international research team has taken things even further. They now claim to have discovered life existing even deeper within the Earth's mantle. This time, it's microbial life. According to the team, these microorganisms dwell within the molten mantle itself, something scientists once thought impossible. The researchers took samples from an ultra-deep site known as the Atlantic Massif, where new oceanic crust is formed from the Earth's deep interior. The rock found in this region is called green peridotite, a type that only exists deep within the mantle but has been pushed to the surface by tectonic movement. Inside these rock samples, scientists discovered tiny forms of life. However, the team is still uncertain whether these microbes truly originated in the mantle or simply rode up with the rocks that were pushed to the ocean's surface thousands of years ago. When someone mentions Sherwood Forest, the first image that probably comes to most people's minds is the legendary outlaw Robin Hood. But what few realize is that Sherwood is very much a real forest in England, not just a setting from old stories, but a place rich with mystery and living history. And who was Robin Hood? In reality, the name was once used as a common nickname for petty thieves dating back to the 13th century. It's possible that men like Robin Hood truly existed, living in the woods, fleeing from the king and the law, carrying out daring heists. They were certainly criminals, but in the eyes of the poor, they may have been heroes. There's no evidence proving that Robin Hood was a real historical figure. The name first appeared in a poem in 1377, and by 1521, a Scottish historian named John Major had helped spread the image of Robin Hood far and wide, turning him into a kind of medieval Batman. As for Sherwood Forest itself, its history stretches back to prehistoric times, when early hunters used flint tools to survive in the area. During the Iron Age, farmers began to settle there, and even the Romans once passed through the forest in the early centuries after the birth of Christ. By the 13th century, Sherwood had become the largest forest in England, spanning 100,000 acres, precisely when tales of Robin Hood began to spread, during an era when real bandits did lie in wait for travelers along the forest's roads. Today, most of the forest has been cut down for farming. Only small sections remain like shadows of a legend that once lived in the heart of ancient England. One of the strangest and most controversial theories about what lies beneath the planet's crust is the hollow Earth theory. According to this idea, there could be vast pockets of space beneath the surface, places capable of hosting unknown life, or even an underground world filled with bizarre creatures that not even H.P. Lovecraft could have imagined. Although this theory is now dismissed as being no more plausible than the flat Earth theory, it was once taken seriously by many respected scientists. The hollow earth theory has roots in ancient mythologies that describe a world existing beneath our own. In the early days of science, some believed that the Earth wasn't completely solid, which meant there could be enough room inside for giant organisms to survive. And incredibly, if we placed the entire planet Venus inside the Earth, there would still be enough leftover space for a biosphere with its own separate atmosphere. According to some estimates, this would leave over 460 million square kilometers of roaming ground for beasts and monsters, something straight out of Jules Verne's journey to the center of the Earth. Of course, such an idea is now entirely impossible. The Earth's core is a massive ball of solid iron surrounded by a dense layer of molten rock. But even without that molten layer, any hollow space inside would be subjected to pressures 20 times greater than those on the surface. At a depth of 320 kilometers, the pressure would be so intense that no creature from that imaginary world could possibly survive. Still, it remains an intriguing hypothesis, one that continues to fuel the human imagination. Hidden deep beneath the surface, just outside the city of Rome, lies a world of the dead, the Domitilla Catacombs, one of the best preserved underground cities for the departed anywhere in Europe. Construction of this catacomb network began in the 1st century CE, commissioned by the Domitilla family, an elite Roman lineage. The tunnels were in use for more than 3 centuries, up until around the year 400, stretching nearly 1 mile beneath the surface. Today, more than 26,000 tombs still hold human remains. These dark, damp, and eerie passageways were forgotten for nearly a full millennium until archaeologist Antonio Bosio rediscovered them in 1593. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire still worshipped pagan gods. But in the shadows, a new faith was quietly spreading Christianity. As the faith grew, tensions between the two worldviews escalated, especially in how they treated the dead. Pagans burned their dead on funeral pyres, while Christians believed in bodily resurrection and insisted on preserving the corpse. The only solution was to bury the dead beyond the city boundaries, and so the Domitilla Catacombs were born. Centuries later, many of those early believers still lie within, as if waiting for the day Christ will return to call them back from death. Recent studies have finally pinned down the age of Earth's solid inner core. Beneath the planet's massive onion-like layers is a solid core wrapped in a liquid sphere of iron. This molten layer is slowly crystallizing over time. Scientists have long known that the solid inner core is gradually growing as the surrounding liquid iron cools and hardens. This crystallization process generates the magnetic field that envelops the Earth, shielding life from cosmic radiation, a force that could mutate living things into something monstrous. Despite extensive knowledge about Earth's core, scientists still don't fully understand its formation history. The giant iron ball has a diameter of about 2,400 kilometers, and for years, estimates of its age have varied widely from 500 million years to more than 4 billion. The age of the Earth itself is already established at 4.5 billion years. Thanks to recent research, scientists now estimate that the solid inner core formed between 1 and 1.3 billion years ago. How do scientists know this? According to Live Science, they took a tiny piece of iron, placed it between 2 diamonds, and blasted it with an intense laser. This allowed them to simulate the extreme temperature and pressure conditions that existed when the Earth's core was forming by melting and compressing the iron sample. The results revealed that the solid inner core formed nearly 3 billion years after the outer core, meaning it appeared long after the Earth itself took shape. In a small village, about 80 kilometers from Berlin, archaeologists have uncovered a massive ceremonial structure dating back more than 6,800 years. The circular complex spans 110 meters in diameter, 3 times the size of Stonehenge's central ring. This structure was first identified in 2017 through satellite imagery. Today, researchers are still trying to uncover its true purpose. What drove a Stone Age community to spend months constructing such an enormous stone monument? The most reasonable theory is that it served communal ritual functions. Excavations have uncovered flint tools, hundreds of bone fragments, pottery shards, and shells, all pointing to some form of worship. But who were they worshiping, and why? Were people or animals sacrificed here, or was it a place of joyful celebration rather than horror? Those questions remain unanswered, and archaeologists continue their journey to decode the whispers of the past. In ancient Egypt, archaeologists have unearthed a strange animal cemetery nestled in the golden sands near the ancient port of Berenice. Beneath the layers of time, most of the remains belonged to cats, but monkeys and dogs were also found. Berenice once served as a major trade hub, welcoming ships from East Africa, Europe, and even India. These animal remains date back to the 1st century CE, about 2,000 years ago. What astonished researchers wasn't just the number, but the scale. They discovered more than 600 separate tombs, all for beloved animals. Around 90% of them were cats. The rest included dogs and monkeys, many of which clearly came from beyond Africa. The most puzzling detail lay in how the animals were buried. Contrary to popular images of ancient Egypt, where the dead were elaborately mummified, not a single animal here was embalmed. Even stranger, there were no human remains in the area, confirming that this was a dedicated pet cemetery. Archaeologists believe these animals held special roles in ancient society. They may have been companions, pets, much like today. The ancient Egyptians' affection for cats seems as profound as our own love for animals today. They didn't just bury these creatures, they buried them with grave goods. Many tombs contain pottery, glass bead necklaces, and shells shimmering ornaments worn by the cats before their final rest. A touching farewell to loyal four-legged friends. Berenike, a Greco-Roman harbor town along Egypt's eastern desert, was once a bustling gateway of trade. A recent excavation there revealed a mysterious temple from the late Roman era, roughly between the 4th and 6th centuries CE. By that time, Egypt's golden age had passed. The nation was fractured and torn by rival factions. The temple was excavated by a team from the University of Delaware, who soon realized that it had once been seized by a nomadic group known as the Blemmyes migrants from Nubia, seeking control of the region. Though the temple was designed in traditional Egyptian style, it had been repurposed for unusual ceremonies performed by the Blemmyes. Archaeologists found 15 falcon corpses in the shrine, most of them beheaded. Alongside them were eggs buried beneath the floor and a stone slab bearing an ominous inscription, "Do not boil the head in this temple." No one knows exactly what these rituals meant, but scholars believe the Blemmyes blended native Egyptian beliefs with their own traditions centered around the worship of Khonsu, the moon god often depicted with a falcon head. A strange rite, a fading faith, and the last traces of their story, lingering like a whisper from the past, still waiting to be understood. On Christmas Day in the year 1119, the Order of the Knights Templar was founded by King Baldwin II of Jerusalem. Initially, just a small group of French knights, they quickly became a noble guard force, protecting pilgrims in the Holy Land. But it wasn't long before they evolved into a powerful and wealthy military order, ready to wage war against any threat to the sacred lands. The Knights Templar continued fighting relentlessly until they were betrayed, slaughtered, and completely wiped out in the year 1291. Centuries have passed, yet the name Templar remains the origin of countless conspiracy theories and legends. Few know that these mysterious claims emerged very early on. Shortly after the Templars were executed, the German poet Wolfram von Eschenbach wrote an epic describing them as the guardians of the Holy Grail, a symbol of divine power. Though it was only a poem, the tale never faded. Worse still, confessions tortured out of the knights by the minions of King Philip IV tied them to occult practices. They were accused of worshipping Baphomet, a figure later recorded in Henry Agrippa's 16th century book, De Occulta Philosophia. The story surrounding the Templars' sacred knowledge, treasures, and religious mission stretches across the globe from theories that they hid the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia to claims they carried treasure to Oak Island in the United States. The Federal Bureau of Investigation has recently cracked the oldest cold case ever recorded, a mystery stretching back 4,000 years to ancient Egypt. From a single mummified head, investigators extracted DNA and confirmed the identity of the deceased. It all began in 1915, when an American archaeological team discovered a severed mummified head in the ancient cemetery of Deir el-Bersha. The head was brought to the United States and stored at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. But for more than a century, no one knew who it truly belonged to. It had been separated from its body and placed in a tomb that may not have been its own. The head was found in the tomb of Jehutinakht and his wife, a governor who lived during Egypt's Middle Kingdom. Over 4 millennia, the tomb had been raided multiple times. The body inside was disturbed, and the burial chamber itself had nearly been burned down. Matters grew more complicated when key bones like the cheekbone and jaw hinge had been removed. According to researchers, this was part of an ancient ritual to allow the dead to eat and speak in the afterlife. It wasn't until 2016 that a small tooth fragment was sent to FBI forensic scientist Dr. Odile Leray. She analyzed the DNA and confirmed that the head belonged to a male, most likely Governor Jehutinakht himself. After more than 100 years of debate, the head had finally returned to its rightful identity. If you've ever found yourself lying awake at night, wondering about the very first city on Earth, the answer is Uruk, the cradle of urban civilization. First settled around 4,500 BCE in the region of Mesopotamia, Uruk was the first place to meet every official definition of a city: stable social organization, centralized government, monumental architecture, religion, writing, literature, and specialized labor. All of it began here. While Jericho, Eridu, or Sidon may have been older, only Uruk evolved to a scale that could be called a true city. The population exploded, massive walls were built for defense, and agriculture thrived outside its fortified perimeter. No one knows exactly how many people lived in Uruk, but historians agree it had more inhabitants than any other place in the ancient world. Rumors of prosperity spread, drawing people from rural villages into the flourishing metropolis, marking a glorious beginning to urban life. The mysterious monoliths. In November of the year 2020, a strange metallic monolith suddenly appeared in the Utah desert. It was a solid vertical column, a monolith made of either stone or metal. It was discovered by state officials who were counting sheep by helicopter. The bizarre scene reminded many of Stanley Kubrick's science fiction film 2001, A Space Odyssey, in which an alien monolith jumpstarts human evolution. But in Utah, this mysterious pillar triggered no such awakening. It simply stood in silence in the empty wilderness. Within days, it became a viral attraction. Internet sleuths pinpointed the exact location through Google Earth and found that the monolith may have been standing there unnoticed since the year 2015. But then, as if by magic, it vanished without a trace just as crowds began arriving. Less than 1 week later, another monolith appeared in Romania. By early December of the year 2020, a third was discovered atop Pine Mountain in California. Not long after, a fourth was found in Pittsburgh and a fifth in Las Vegas. However, the Pittsburgh monolith turned out to be a candy store advertisement. But then, on December 6th, a sixth monolith was discovered in the Netherlands. Since then, no new monoliths have appeared, and the origins of those already found remain a mystery. No one knows whether this was the work of extraterrestrials or simply an elaborate human prank. If it was a hoax, it was a masterful performance, as monoliths emerged across the world within days. And one question remains unanswered. How did the first one sit hidden in the desert for so many years? Too many questions and far too few answers. Few people know that deep within the Earth lie remnants of an alien world, a planet that once collided with ours in the solar system's distant past. Scientists have now located the remains. Around 4.5 billion years ago, a Mars-sized planet named Theia smashed into Earth. That violent impact not only created the moon, but also left behind two massive pieces of Theia trapped in Earth's mantle. The existence of Theia has never been disputed by the scientific community. All agree it once struck Earth. Breaking apart, some fragments formed the moon, while others were buried deep underground. A new study, led by geodynamicist Qian Yuan of Arizona State University, suggests that two of Theia's remnants, each nearly the size of a continent, are now buried beneath West Africa and the Pacific Ocean. The discovery process unfolded like this. As seismologists studied Earth's deep rock layers, they noticed earthquake waves slowed down dramatically when passing through two specific zones. These are the only regions on Earth where this phenomenon occurs. The finding suggests that the rock in these areas has a different chemical makeup and density than surrounding materials, leading to the most plausible theory. They are alien in origin, remnants of the long-lost planet Theia. Although the world has never found proof that the underworld from Greek mythology truly exists, ancient people believed there was at least one gateway leading to it. That place was Hades, the realm the Greeks believed souls entered after death. Believing the underworld lay beneath the earth, they thought it could be accessed through natural caves and underground tunnels. One of those legendary gates was said to be located at Cape Matapan in Greece. It was here that Orpheus descended into the underworld to find his lost wife. And it was also here that Hercules journeyed into the darkness to capture Cerberus, the three-headed dog guarding the entrance to Hades. The ancient Spartans revered this place so deeply that they built temples and altars along the rocky cliffs, including a temple dedicated to the sea god Poseidon, which still stands today. Though it is now known that the caves at Matapan lead only to submerged coastal chambers, the ruins remain echoing an ancient belief in the world beyond. A new study has revealed yet another threat lurking just beneath Earth's surface. Volcanologists have discovered shallow lava lakes that were previously invisible to seismic technology. These unusual reservoirs are too small and too close to the surface for modern instruments to detect. This suggests that small lava lakes may be far more common than once believed. The consequence is that planning and predicting future volcanic eruptions could become much more difficult. A hidden lava lake can turn a seemingly minor eruption into an explosive catastrophe, defying expert forecasts. Researchers affirm that the level of risk depends on each individual volcano, but the possibility that invisible lava lakes could lie beneath seemingly dormant peaks means any eruption could suddenly escalate into a disaster without warning. What might begin as a wisp of smoke could erupt into a torrent of molten rock, capable of wiping out an entire city, a city people once thought was safe. Archaeologists have uncovered what may be the first Buddhist temple ever built. The ruins were excavated in the Swat Valley, located in the ancient land of Gandhara, a region once conquered by Alexander the Great during the 3rd century before the Common Era. The presence of Greek and Macedonian settlers here gave rise to a rare fusion of Buddhism and classical Hellenic art. It was a meeting of two entirely different worlds. Statues of the Buddha stood between Greek-style columns, an awe-inspiring symbol of the age. Based on the remaining evidence, archaeologists believe the temple was built in the mid-2nd century before the Common Era, during the rule of the Indo-Greek kingdom. But the most astonishing discovery was a much older temple buried beneath its foundations. It may have been constructed just 1 century after the death of the Buddha, around the early 5th century before the Common Era. Though much of it is severely damaged and nearly unrecognizable, it remains one of the most historically significant finds to date. It is like uncovering the first church ever built after the death of Christ, a priceless relic, though not yet fully confirmed. For now, all that is known is that it is very, very old. Who built it, and why they chose this exact spot, remains an unsolved mystery. There are many misconceptions surrounding the legendary castle of Dracula. For tourists visiting Romania, Bran Castle is often promoted as the home of Vlad the Impaler, the real historical figure behind the Dracula myth. But the truth is far more complex. Vlad never lived at Bran. His true connection lies with Poenari Castle, a rugged fortress perched high atop a cliff more than 2,400 feet above the ground. Like a stone eagle's nest overlooking the Carpathians, Poenari gazes down over the vast Romanian countryside. The castle was first built in the 13th century as the stronghold of the Basarab dynasty, but within a few decades, it was abandoned. When Vlad ruled Wallachia in the 15th century, he stumbled upon its ruins during a hunting trip and instantly recognized its strategic potential. He ordered it rebuilt using captured enemies as slave labor to become his primary fortress. Yet the castle saw little combat. After Vlad's death in the year 1476, Poenari fell into obscurity once more. In the year 1913, a landslide severely damaged the entire structure. Today, only crumbling stone walls remain silent, witnesses to a fortress that once struck terror across the Balkans. In the tranquil region of Takachiho, Japan often called the Mount Olympus of Shinto mythology, there lies an ancient shrine named Amano Iwato. Though it appears in Japan's oldest legends, the place itself is very real. According to myth, the sun goddess Amaterasu fled to this cave after a cruel prank by her brother. Overcome with anger and sorrow, she withdrew from the world, hiding in the darkness of the Takachiho cave, plunging all of creation into shadow. The other gods quickly realized the consequences of her absence. They gathered at the cave's entrance, trying to coax her out, but Amaterasu remained unmoved. It wasn't until a goddess began dancing joyfully, filling the heavens with laughter, that Amaterasu grew curious and peeked outside. The fear of missing out had awakened her, and when she stepped from the cave, light once again returned to the earth. Though the tale is mythical, the cave where Amaterasu once hid is indeed a real place. The Amano Iwato shrine was built just outside its mouth, a stunning masterpiece of traditional architecture. From there, visitors can peer into the dark crevice where the goddess once sealed the sun away. The newly discovered tombs. At the ancient necropolis of Saqqara, located south of Cairo, archaeologists have uncovered yet more tombs, a revelation that no longer surprises anyone, as this place continues to reveal mysteries long buried by time. This time, 5 stone tombs were excavated, dating from approximately 2700 to 2055 before the Common Era. They lie near the lesser-known pyramid of King Merenre, a structure more than 45 meters tall from the 6th dynasty of ancient Egypt. Despite nearly 5,000 years having passed, the walls inside the tombs remain vividly colored. Researchers believe these tombs once belonged to high-ranking officials in ancient Egypt's government. At least 2 of the tombs have been identified as belonging to women, one of whom was a priestess named Peti, a servant of Hathor, the goddess of love and fertility. Peti was not just a religious figure. Traces left behind suggest she also played a role in state affairs, a detail that illuminates the status of women in ancient Egyptian civilization. Prison of the Demon. In the highlands of Iran stands a chilling and mysterious site known as Solomon's Prison, or the Prison of the Demon. Shrouded in dark legends, it has long been considered forbidden ground by locals. According to tradition, King Solomon sealed a demon inside this tower, and since then it has continuously released deadly poisonous gas. The locals avoid the site out of generational fear, but tourists are lured by the mystery. They come seeking the truth behind the legend. Could there really be a demon imprisoned beneath the earth? In reality, the structure was built during the Sasanian Empire, which ruled from the year 224 to 651 of the Common Era, more than a full millennium after Solomon's death. The Sasanians built atop a naturally formed conical hill created over thousands of years. Deep inside was a sulfur-rich hot spring, the true source of the poisonous vapors recounted in folklore. In essence, it was a volcanic vent filled with salt and sulfur. Atop this volcanic cone, a crude stone structure was erected once used for human sacrifices. Zoroastrian priests would lead victims to the summit and cast them into the crater as offerings to harsh deities. Sometimes, they would simply imprison people inside and let the toxic fumes finish the ritual. A haunting ruin, and perhaps the most terrifying tourist destination one could dare to visit. Deep inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, also known as the Pyramid of Khufu, lies a network of underground shafts and corridors that lead to mysterious chambers. The entrance lies near ground level, sloping downward before suddenly splitting into two paths. One descending, and the other ascending. If one chooses the upward route, they arrive at the Grand Gallery, a colossal passageway that leads directly into the pyramid's core. There, within the heart of the monument, lies an enigmatic room known as the Queen's Chamber. Discovered in the year 1872, the chamber had been sealed behind a dense limestone wall. No one knows why it was so thoroughly hidden. When archaeologists entered, they found nothing but absolute silence. The walls were lined with smooth limestone, and the ceiling was shaped in a pointed arch. Every detail was crafted with incredible precision, yet seemed to serve no clear purpose. Only a few unidentifiable objects were found. A small piece of copper, a fragment of wood, and a metal hook of unknown use. These relics only deepen the mystery. Many theories have circulated over the decades. Some believe it was once a treasure vault, looted and sealed long ago. Others think that because it lies directly beneath the king's chamber, it served as a tomb for the pharaoh's soul, a sacred burial space for the spirit, while his body rested above. Perhaps the eternal soul of Khufu was entombed within that silent, empty room we now call the Queen's Chamber. Greater Tartaria. The theory of a lost ancient empire called Greater Tartaria originated in Russia, with its main proponent being Anatoly Fomenko, the author of New Chronology, a work filled with pseudo-historical claims. According to this theory, Greater Tartaria was once a vast and advanced civilization centered in what is now Russia. Its architectural wonders allegedly included sites like Penn Station in New York, the Singer Building, and even the World's Fair of the Year, 1915, all said to be relics of Tartary's golden age. In fact, any building from the Gilded Age is often attributed to this mysterious empire, but the theory quickly descends into absurdity. Believers claim that a great mud flood destroyed much of the ancient world shortly before the First World War. The two subsequent world wars, they argue, were waged to erase the last remnants of Tartarian architecture. Some even suggest that Greater Tartaria once built the White House and the pyramids of Giza. According to journalist Zach Mortis of Bloomberg, this conspiracy theory is about as credible as believing the Earth is flat. Blombos Cave, perched on a limestone cliff overlooking South Africa's coast, is the site of the oldest prehistoric artwork ever discovered. It lies about 90 meters from the sea and nearly 300 kilometers from Cape Town. In the cave's shadows, archaeologists uncovered broken red stones etched with abstract symbols and geometric patterns dating back to around 70,000 years before the Common Era. In addition, ancient people crafted necklaces from seashells. The next comparable artwork would not appear until 30,000 years later, in El Castillo Cave in Spain. Blombos' art predates all known European forms of expression by 50,000 years. And that's not all. Researchers also found Africa's oldest bone tools here, made from polished animal bone and more than 80,000 years old. At that point in time, humans had not yet fully evolved into modern Homo sapiens. In the year 2013, archaeologists uncovered a strange ruin in Turkey, a site referred to as Pluto's Gate. The location matches with eerie precision the ancient descriptions of a temple believed to lead to the underworld. In antiquity, it was considered a literal gateway to hell before vanishing entirely from historical records in the 6th century. According to the Greek philosopher Strabo, the area was always covered by a thick mist, so dense that the ground beneath it could not be seen. The air was dark, cold, and damp enough to send shivers down anyone's spine. Visitors from across the ancient world made pilgrimages to this place just to glimpse what they believed was a portal into eternal darkness. During the period of Greek control over the region, 2,000 years ago, it was one of the most popular destinations in the known world. Even those who arrived as skeptics often departed firmly convinced of the underworld's reality. Travelers could buy small birds or animals, much like one might purchase a hot dog at a modern stadium, and release them before the gate. Instantly, the creatures would die. Only the priests were able to pass unharmed. The reason was, geological Pluto's gate sits directly above a natural fissure in the earth, which constantly emits toxic gases. Small animals would die within moments of exposure, but the priests, perhaps accustomed to the fumes or already in a hallucinatory state from inhaling them, could remain standing at the threshold for short periods without collapsing. Legends of the Fountain of Youth have appeared in cultures across the globe. From Japan to Polynesia, tales of a magical water source capable of healing or bestowing immortality have been told for thousands of years. Yet among these stories, one myth is tied to a real place rooted in the expedition of Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de León. He once heard tales of a miraculous spring and a river of renewal located north of Cuba around the time of Columbus's second voyage to the New World in the year 1493. After his death, stories linking Ponce de León to the Fountain of Youth spread throughout the Spanish Empire. By the year 1535, rumors claimed he had sought the spring to cure impotence, though no historical records confirm this, nor do any suggest he ever found the fabled waters. In a seemingly ordinary field where sheep now graze peacefully in Ireland, an ancient and eerie ritual once took place. 2,000 years ago, the Celtic people performed sacrificial rites in a cave they believed was a literal entrance to the underworld. That cave is the origin of the Samhain festival, the ancient forerunner of what we now call Halloween. On the night of October 31st, people would disguise themselves as demons, dance around fires, and offer animal sacrifices to appease spirits from the otherworld. According to archaeologist Daniel Curley, inside the now-erased temple, people once laid their offerings atop a raised mound. For the rest of the year, the land appeared calm, but on that night, it became a bridge between the living and the dead. Today, the Rathcrogan area, where the cave lies, is an archaeological complex featuring more than 200 monuments, burial mounds, ring forts, standing stones, Iron Age temples, and, of course, the ancient gate to the Dark Realm. Off the coast of England, maritime archaeologists have just announced a discovery that stunned the scientific world. They have identified what may be the oldest known shipyard on Earth, dating back 8,000 years. Beneath the sea, divers uncovered layered wooden planks, likely once the foundation of a primitive harbor. This submerged structure was excavated at Boldnor Cliff, a site that was once a Stone Age valley, but now lies more than 30 feet underwater. The area contains not one but 5 archaeological zones. It was once part of the land bridge that connected Britain to continental Europe. As sea levels rose, the Stone Age inhabitants were forced to abandon their ancestral land, swallowed by the ocean. But the most astonishing detail is the identification of the site as a shipyard. DNA analysis on the wooden samples proved that ancient people had been constructing boats here earlier than anywhere else ever recorded. Each year, shifting sea currents expose new relics. In the most recent excavation season, over 60 wooden planks were recovered, all carefully shaped and once part of the ancient shipyard. Finding wooden fragments dating back 8,000 years is an extraordinary achievement, proof that our ancestors had already mastered seafaring techniques at a time when the ocean still marked the border between myth and life. In the tranquil region of Rathconrath stands an ancient hill once considered the spiritual center of Irish mythology, the Hill of Uisneach. Today, the site is officially recognized as a protected national monument. Atop the hill lies a prehistoric complex of megalithic tombs, burial mounds, remnants of stone walls, sacred wells, and even a medieval-era road. Its location is near the geographical heart of the island, perhaps explaining why this place was once seen as the soul's heart of Ireland for thousands of years. In Irish mythology, Uisneach was believed to be the final resting place of many gods, including Dag Damor, the greatest of them all, protector and ruler of the Celtic people. The Irish believed he was a member of the giant race Tuatha De Danann, the highest divine clan in legend. Countless mystical tales revolve around Dag Damor. He was a warrior, a father, a force against darkness, and according to tradition, his bones still lie buried beneath the Hill of Uisneach. The hill is also thought to be a gateway connecting the physical world with the realm of spirits. According to legend, a sacred flame once burned atop the hill for 7 years. And from this very spot, an ancient hailstorm created 12 great rivers of Ireland. No matter which chapter of Celtic mythology you open, the name Uisneach always emerges a convergence point of endless legends. And the wonder is, you can still walk upon that very hill in the real world today. At the Bronze Age site of Tal El Vuhamam, archaeologists have uncovered an unbelievable phenomenon. This city was completely incinerated around the year 1650 before the Common Era. At that time, Tal el-Hammam was one of the 3 largest cities in the region, arguably even larger than Jerusalem. The city boasted mud brick structures up to 5 stories tall, temples, and academic centers, a true urban civilization of the early age. What stunned experts was that the damage did not resemble war destruction. The city appears to have melted instantaneously in a catastrophic event unlike any other. Today, many scientists believe Tal el-Hammam was obliterated by a meteor exploding in the atmosphere, producing destruction equivalent to 1,000 nuclear bombs. That violent blast may well be the source of the legend of Sodom and Gomorrah. According to the book of Genesis, these cities were filled with sin, so much so that God rained fire and brimstone from heaven to destroy them. The biblical account describes flames from the heavens annihilating the entire population and their buildings. And now, modern science appears to confirm it. According to archaeologist Christopher R. Moore from the University of South Carolina, a meteor airburst swept through Tal el-Hammam. It exploded approximately 2.5 miles above the ground, generating temperatures up to 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. In that instant, people's clothing ignited, wood turned to ash, pottery and metal swords melted away. A shockwave traveling over 740 miles per hour then ripped through the city, shattering structures into dust. Ancient people, unable to explain such a terrible calamity, attributed it to divine wrath. And that is how the legend of Sodom and Gomorrah has endured into modern times. At Abu Ghurab, located between Cairo and Saqqara, archaeologists have recently uncovered the remains of a mysterious ancient structure, believed to be one of the 4 legendary sun temples mentioned in ancient Egyptian lore. Abu Ghurab is less famous than the pyramids of Giza, but it was once the major necropolis of the ancient capital Memphis during the Old Kingdom. Archaeologists have found 14 royal pyramids, tombs dating back to the 21st century before the Common Era, and now a mysterious temple. The latest discovery was made by a Polish-Italian team excavating the temple of Pharaoh Nusser-Ini of the 5th dynasty, where they uncovered the foundation of a mud brick structure. Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities believes this may be the remains of one of the legendary sun temples built by pharaohs to honor the sun god Ra. Although 6 sun temples are recorded in history, only 2 have been found so far. The site at Abu Ghurab could be the 3rd, meaning 3 more may still be hidden beneath Egypt's sands. However, due to the structure's poor condition, archaeologists cannot definitively confirm that this is one of the long-lost legendary temples. If you ask who was the first vampire in literature, most people immediately answer Dracula. But long before Bram Stoker's Legend of the Blood Count, another spectral figure quietly haunted the pages of fiction Carmilla. Author Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu laid the foundation for modern vampire lore. In the year 1871, he published a novella titled Carmilla, telling the strange story of an English young woman named Laura, who became entranced and haunted by a beautiful woman named Carmilla. A mysterious romantic bond developed between them. But when local young women began falling gravely ill and dying from a strange illness, Laura weakened in turn. In her recurring dreams, she was attacked by a giant cat at night. Until the truth emerged, the cat was Carmilla herself, lover and life-drinking predator. Carmilla was hunted down, staked through the heart, beheaded, and completely burned. It is a gruesome tale, and many critics consider it the work that paved the way for Dracula. But because Carmilla portrays a lesbian relationship taboo in Victorian times, it was quickly forgotten, while Dracula, with a dominant male protagonist, became a global icon. However, if you trace the roots of vampire fiction, the first female vampire and the tragic figure hidden for 145 years was Carmilla. Archaeologists working in the West Bank of Israel recently unearthed a strange artifact, a magical hand carved on an ancient stone slab. This object dates to the biblical kingdom of Judah, discovered within a tomb at the Khirbet el-Luqam archaeological site. 3,000 years ago, this land belonged to the Iron Age kingdom of Judah, located just south of ancient Israel. Beside the hand image are ancient inscriptions carved meticulously in a lost form of Hebrew. Biblical archaeology professor Titus Kennedy believes the text may have spiritual significance related to the worship of Yahweh. Many religious scholars accept that both Israel and Judah worshipped Yahweh, the God referred to in the Old Testament. This symbolism is further supported by the presence of the hand motif and the mysterious ancient inscription. Scientists still have much to learn about the universe, and they continue to make astounding discoveries. In early 2020, a research team spent hours observing a star named J0815+4729 also known as Mr. J, located in the constellation Lynx, approximately 5,000 light-years from Earth. Astronomer Adam Burgesser told CNN that stars like Mr. J belong to the galaxy's halo stars, orbiting the Milky Way rather than lying within its disk like younger stars, including our Sunday. The researchers detected 16 chemical elements in the star's atmosphere, forming a remarkably unusual composition. Especially notable were extreme levels of carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, spectacularly rare even among halo stars. Using the W.M. Keck Observatory in Hawaii, they determined that Mr. J belongs to the first generation of stars formed after the universe began. This primitive composition suggests it emerged within the first few hundred million years after the Big Bang, possibly from material expelled by the galaxy's earliest supernova explosions. Scientists say only a handful of such stars have ever been found in the galactic halo, but none with as much carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen relative to iron. John O'Mara, lead scientist at the Keck Observatory, described the discovery as offering profound insight into the earliest epoch of the cosmos, revealed through the stars nearest to us. He also expressed hope that more studies of this kind will uncover the elemental origins of the nascent universe. For centuries, the Karnak stones have puzzled archaeologists. Located just outside the small French village of Karnak, these monoliths form long, linear alignments and complex geometric patterns. They resemble other megalithic structures around the world. Yet every theory here seems to lead to a dead end. There are approximately 3,000 stones in Karnak, erected by a pre-Celtic civilization sometime between 3,300 and 4,500 BCE. The first mystery is how and why ancient people transported them. Karnak is the largest megalithic site on Earth, yet no one knows how Neolithic people moved these massive stones over more than 30 miles into a desolate field. Nor do we know their true purpose. Were they used for religious rituals, astronomical observations, or perhaps boundary markers? All remain speculation. Yet Karnak stands today as one of the best preserved megalithic sites in the world contemporary with Stonehenge, but far more complex and enigmatic. In July of the year 1959, American geologist Paul T. Walker left behind a message in a bottle for a very specific reason. It wasn't a love note or a treasure map, but perhaps the last thing he ever wrote before dying shortly thereafter. Walker tucked the glass bottle among the rocks near a glacier on Ward Hunt Island in the Canadian Arctic. In the letter, he asked whoever found it to measure the distance between the glacier and the surrounding boulders and report the findings to his laboratory. He wanted to know whether the glacier was retreating, and if so, by how much. At that time, he suspected ice melt, while most of his colleagues believed glaciers were growing, not shrinking. It wasn't until the year 2013, 54 years later, that researchers Warwick Vincent and Dennis Sarrazin discovered the bottle during an expedition along the glacier's edge. They honored Walker's request and determined that the glacier had retreated 71 meters since the year 1959. Vincent remarked how incredible it was that Walker had even thought to leave such a message, given that nobody believed in melting glaciers back then. It is a story not only about climate change, but also about brave individuals working in one of the most remote and frigid places in North America, long before GPS or satellite phones. Paul Walker's message is a sobering reminder of how rapidly the ice is melting, and a warning of the monumental changes humanity must be prepared to face. Forensic scientists have recently used cutting-edge technology to identify a so-called vampire. The remains were found around 30 years ago in Griswold, Connecticut, buried with arms crossed in an X shape over the chest, a common burial method during the 19th century when people believed those with supernatural powers needed to be restrained from rising again. Someone must have feared that this man would return from the grave to suck the blood of his neighbors, and so crossed his arms to prevent it. The man was identified as John Barber, traced through the grave marker JB55 and historical records of a man by that name from that period. He wasn't a real vampire. He had likely died from tuberculosis, a disease that caused victims to cough blood and was often mistaken for vampirism. Scientists at Parabon Nanolabs extracted DNA from the skeleton. They went even further, reconstructing his face using machine learning and three-dimensional modeling. He had light skin, brown eyes, brown hair, and an abundance of freckles. The resulting face bore an eerie resemblance to a villain from Pirates of the Caribbean, a mystery from the 19th century, now revealed through the science of the 21st. Around 1500 years ago, a horrific tragedy unfolded on the island of Öland, off the coast of Sweden. This island lies at the northern edge of Europe, where icy winds slice through the skin and life clings on at the heart of a howling vortex. Back then, the weather was not the only threat people lived in constant fear, never knowing when death might strike. The evidence of the massacre was discovered at Sandby Borg, now just a flattened ruin marked by crumbling stone walls, once built from repurposed blocks of an ancient fort. The original fortress, constructed around the year 400, covered an area roughly the size of a soccer field and was one of about a dozen similar structures from the migration period, a time when the Roman Empire was collapsing. The people built this place for shelter, to survive in peace amid chaos. But then attackers came, stormed the homes, and slaughtered the inhabitants where they stood, leaving bodies sprawled, unburied, unable even to scream for help. After that, no one returned. The earthen walls crumbled with time, turning the site into a cold, shallow grave. Helena Victor, from the Kalmar Museum, called it a one-of-a-kind crime scene, an entire village wiped out in an instant, never disturbed again, never looted or buried. The islanders knew what had happened, but they were too terrified to enter. The crime remains unsolved. No one knows who the killers were or why an entire community vanished in such chilling silence. Europe's most famous mummy was discovered in the Alps 30 years ago. He had lived 5,000 years earlier, the only known prehistoric human ever found trapped in a block of ice. Like a character from a graphic novel, but this story is entirely real. Ötzi was found lying still in the frozen edge of a glacial lake at an altitude of nearly 3,000 meters, near the border between Austria and Italy. He had been preserved by the extreme climate, thin air, slicing wind, and sub-freezing temperatures. So, what have scientists learned from his body over these past 3 decades? Since being recovered, Ötzi has been housed and studied at the South Tyrol Archaeology Museum in Italy. His remains are kept in a climate-controlled cold room at -21.2 degrees Fahrenheit. 5 times a year, his body is sprayed with sterile water to maintain its frozen, hydrated state. Oliver Peschel, the preservation expert, once called him the most thoroughly studied human corpse in the world. Among the findings, Ötzi stood only about 1.50 meters, 7 tall, died at the age of 46, and was left-handed, a rarity. He wore size 8 shoes, had brown eyes, brown hair, and a Mediterranean complexion. His blood type was O, he was lactose intolerant, and he lacked his 12th pair of ribs. He had severe dental decay, suffered from Lyme disease, and experienced chronic joint pain in his shoulders, hips, and knees. Most strikingly, his body bore 61 tattoos, clear evidence that tattooing was already fashionable over 5,200 years ago. On the Mediterranean island of Corsica, researchers have uncovered a peculiar burial practice, corpses laid to rest in giant jars. In the year 2019, they began excavating a cemetery dating to the 3rd century CE, covering about 560 square meters and containing at least 40 tombs. Most strikingly, many human skeletons were placed inside ancient clay jars types, originally used for transporting wine or olive oil, not for burial. Yet for unknown reasons, the Corsican people repurposed them as coffins. Archaeologists still cannot explain why this practice arose. The island's inhabitants, descendants of the Phoenicians who occupied the region around 1000 BCE, imported these jars from Carthage in North Africa. But the reason behind turning transport vessels into burial jars remains mysterious. Child burials in jars existed from the Bronze Age through to the 20th century, but no one fully understands the belief behind this enduring tradition. In the year 2018, scientists published a startling discovery. They had successfully revived 2 microscopic worm species after tens of thousands of years frozen in permafrost. Published in Docklady Biological Sciences, the research described these tiny multicellular creatures as the first of their kind ever brought back to life after being frozen for millennia. The roundworms measure barely 1 millimeter in length, but are incredibly resilient. Some species can survive up to 8 meters underground, deeper than any known multicellular organism. Though famed for adapting to extreme environments, the ability of these worms to revive after 30,000 years of freezing overshadowed every previous claim to fortitude. Researchers retrieved 2 well-preserved samples containing worms from separate areas of Siberia. They isolated the adult females and thawed them, and before long, the worms began to move and feed normally. Scientists now aim to understand the mechanisms that enabled these tiny creatures to resurrect after being frozen for so long. In the Rops Mountains of Bulgaria, an anonymous man in his 30s accidentally unearthed a bizarre object, an uncanny skull unlike anything seen before. Since that moment, it has become one of the most controversial and mysterious discoveries in archaeological history. What makes the skull extraordinary is not so much its shape, but the rumors swirling around it. Some believe it offers physical proof of extraterrestrial life. Others dismiss it as a crude hoax. Yet whatever one believes, the skull undeniably exists. Dr. Kovachev, the director of the Paleontology Museum in Esenovgrad, confirmed the skull bears no resemblance to any known primate species. It possesses 6 eye sockets, an anatomical feature no earthly creature has ever had. Some claim its owner had 6 eyes. Others argue it belongs to an unknown biological system entirely. Even more bizarre, the skull appears to have no mouth. It does not match any creature known to have existed on Earth for the last 30 million years. But while the object is real, that does not automatically make it alien. Some experts speculate it may be the deformed skull of a giant panda or another forest creature, deliberately altered by humans to appear otherworldly. To date, no scientific DNA analysis has been conducted, deepening the mystery and the skepticism. What is it? Truly a piece of wildlife remains? An elaborate forgery? Or alien evidence? The truth remains locked in shadow. Between 4100 and 1750 BCE, the Sumerian civilization thrived in Mesopotamia long before Greek gods or Egyptian mythology. The Sumerians, along with the Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians, worshipped a pantheon known as the Anunnaki. Though many scholars interpret the Anunnaki as deities within ancient Mesopotamian religion, recent decades have spawned a bold hypothesis. Could these ancient gods have been extraterrestrials? From television shows to conspiracy theories, the name Anunnaki has become a symbol at the intersection of science and myth. Depictions on stone tablets and temple art present them as offspring of the sky god and an earth goddess Ki, powerful entities shaping human destiny. Fascinatingly, no ancient record describes the Anunnaki as a unified group. There is no definitive list of names. No centralized cult worshipped them all. Instead, each region or city-state favored one particular figure from the pantheon. In Mesopotamian myth, the Anunnaki appear as giant beings endowed with supernatural power and radiant light, emanating from their bodies, possibly metallic glow or divine energy. They wore horned headdresses and garments, lavishly adorned with gold and silver. Over time, Anunnaki merged into other mythologies, such as Babylon's god Marduk or the deities in the Epic of Gilgamesh. They became judges, soldiers, or divine entities guiding humanity's fate. So where did the theory that Anunnaki were aliens begin? In the year 1976, scholar Zecharia Sitchin published a controversial translation of 14 ancient Sumerian clay tablets. In his book, he claimed the Anunnaki came from a distant planet called Nibiru. He argued they arrived on Earth to mine gold, build military bases, and control humans as slaves. Scholars quickly refuted Sitchin's translations, dismissing them as inaccurate and speculative. Still, the hypothesis sparked public curiosity about ancient Mesopotamian civilizations. Today, the Anunnaki symbolize both myth and science fiction, a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with origin stories, the cosmos, and the unknown. NASA's Kepler Space Telescope was designed to hunt exoplanets orbiting distant stars. But why are we so captivated by alien worlds? Because they help us understand how unique or common our solar system truly is. Kepler not only discovered exoplanets, but also recorded anomalies like stellar storms, star spots, and even potential artificial structures around stars. These structures could be satellites or even alien megastructures. Kepler detects planets by tracking dips in a star's brightness each time a planet transits. The light dims. After observing over time, Kepler can map light curves to infer the size and shape of the object. 99% of the planets discovered are spherical, like other planets in the Milky Way. Then Kepler observed something completely unexpected in the constellation Cygnus. One star's brightness dropped by 15% when an object passed in front of it, and then suddenly by 22% more. Scientists confirmed that whatever was blocking the star must be enormous and perhaps composed of many objects. There was no sign of cosmic dust, nor infrared emissions. At this point, some believe that Kepler may have serendipitously observed an alien megastructure, a giant artificial object orbiting a star larger than the Sunday. Of course, so far these claims remain speculative. In Sweden, archaeologists excavating 2 graves at the Valsgärd cemetery were astonished to discover the skeleton of an owl placed beside an Iron Age warrior. This burial site is often compared to the famous Sutton Hoo Cemetery in England, which contains more than 90 graves dating from 500 to 800 CE. The warrior was laid to rest in a boat approximately 10 meters long, a vessel meant to transport the deceased to the realm beyond. He was buried with ornate helmets, a sword and shield, along with supplies for the journey after death. Adjacent to the boat were animal remains, including horses. According to Professor Berglund, these horses were meant to help the warrior cross from the boat to the shores of the underworld. The owl's head was removed, possibly to prevent it from coming alive. Experts identified the bird as a short-eared owl, but to this day, nobody fully understands its symbolic significance for the warrior's journey to the afterlife. 41 light-years from Earth lies an exoplanet named GJ-1132b, orbiting a red dwarf star. It completes an orbit in only a day and a half by Earth time. This strange world was once believed to have lost its entire atmosphere, but it may have developed a secondary atmosphere through volcanic activity. The latest analysis of observations from the Hubble Space Telescope has detected signs of this secondary atmosphere on the radiation-baked planet. According to current hypotheses, GJ-1132b was once a gas giant, rich in hydrogen, and much larger than Earth, but it lost its primordial atmosphere due to intense stellar radiation, leaving behind a rocky core roughly Earthwise-ized. We once thought that planets exposed to strong radiation would be dull because they'd lost their atmospheres, said study author Raisa Estrella. But scientists realized they were wrong, at least in this case when they discovered that GJ-1132b nevertheless retains an atmosphere containing hydrogen, hydrogen cyanide, methane, and a layer of haze similar to polluted smog. Experts believe that because the planet orbits so close to its star, volcanic activity frequently vents gases through cracks in the rocky crust, creating the secondary atmosphere. The research team hopes to continue studying this mysterious planet and raise a profound question. How many rocky planets in the universe did not originally form that way? The world's largest cut stone may surprise many. It's not in Egypt, not in England, nor in the Americas. The largest monolithic block ever crafted by humans is known as the Southern Stone, located at the Baalbek ruins in Lebanon. This massive block weighs 1,242 tons, a figure that astounds anyone. Initially intended to serve as a foundation for a temple just over 900 meters away, its sheer size proved too daunting for the builders. Nevertheless, they managed to move other stones weighing up to 800 tons inside the temple and raise them more than 6 meters high. This feat of engineering is nearly forgotten today, yet the ancients placed these colossal stones with machine-like precision. The Southern Stone itself could not be moved. Remarkably, archaeologists recently uncovered a larger stone buried just meters away. It now protrudes more than 18 meters above ground, though excavation is still ongoing. This discovery only deepens the mystery surrounding this ancient monumental site. So who truly built the Baalbek temple, and why? The Romans called it Heliopolis, and the area around it had been inhabited since the Bronze Age. Some theories credit the Phoenicians, others suggest Canaanites of biblical times. A few even claim that only giants could stack 1,000-ton stones on top of each other. Today, no one knows who built it or how they achieved such a monumental accomplishment thousands of years ago. While observing the shoreline at Padre Island National Seashore near the Gulf of Mexico, National Park Service Ranger Rebecca Clausen spotted a golden rope-like mass washed ashore. But it was not litter, it was a living creature, a type of flexible, soft coral commonly called a sea whip. Sea whips can be red, orange, yellow, purple, lavender, or deep violet. According to marine species identification portals, park officials often find yellow and red specimens. Sea whip refers to various species of soft coral, but those found in North America belong to Leptogorgia virgulata, known as the colorful sea whip. They live near the coast and range from New Jersey down to the Gulf of Mexico. According to a conservation post, identifying a sea whip is easy by looking at the black internal skeleton. The colorful exterior consists of polyps, aggregations of living organisms forming the coral body. So next time you see what looks like rope washed up on the beach, look more closely. It might be a marvelous creature of the ocean. In the year 2018, local resident Pavel Efimov discovered the severed head of a prehistoric wolf in Yakutia, northern Russia. This adult wolf died about 32,000 years ago, aged only 2 to 4 years old. Its fur and teeth remained intact, and astonishingly, even its soft tissues and brain survived, marking the first time a mature ancient wolf with preserved brain tissue has ever been found. The skull alone measured 40 centimeters long, nearly half the length of a modern wolf. It descends from an extinct lineage, distinct from modern wolves, and represents the first adult specimen of the Pleistocene steppe wolf, confirmed to date. It remains unclear why the head was detached or what happened to the rest of the body. Evolutionary geneticist Love Dalen and colleagues said there is no evidence of human tampering. Scientists are planning DNA extraction from the specimen, hoping to further decode the evolutionary history of the wolf species. If you find these mysterious stories fascinating, leave your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our next discoveries together. See you in the next video.